It's after Christmas and you need some place to get rid of the body. You've been able to keep it in the house this long, but it's really starting to shrivel up and decompose. Sure smells good though. Luckily you got that new fixed blade, Cima G20, to help you break it down and scatter it around the yard where no one will find it. I'm talking to the Christmas tree, of course, right? That's what you knew what I was talking about. Well, since you don't have curbside trash pickup and you rent, the responsible thing to do is break it up into small pieces and scatter it around the brush at the edge of your yard, because all renters are jerks and you have to maintain the stereotype. But the real reason is because subscriber Martial Law asked me to wail on a Christmas tree one year, and since the world is now peaceful and all disease has been cured, he decided to make his Christmas wish that. So let's go over the dimensions of this reasonably sized, which is a nice way of saying a little small, fixed blade knife, like the overall length and weight, with and without the sheath, the blade length, the cutting edge, the handle size, the grip area. Note I forgot to put the ferro rod back in, but I measured pretending it was there, so hopefully you have a good imagination too. You'll see what I mean later in the video. Spine thickness and handle thickness. The G20 is a full tang fixed blade made out of everyone's favorite to talk crap about steel in 2016, AUS 8, in a satin finish blade with a full flat grind and a slight drop point. The blade is kinda thick, as is the tang further back. It's not huge, but it's heavy for its size, and that's probably due to the thick tang. You'll notice that the scales are made out of polished black micarta, and it covers a brass liner of sorts that is hidden under the scales, presumably because people who buy cheap knives think brass accents are classy. But mostly I think it's a sleeve for the ferro rod hidden in its butt. You're like, oh, like a drug mule. The knife is a mule and the ferro rod is like the kilo of cocaine. Wow, a kilo. Exactly. The handle is an okay size, but I do have to kind of crowd my fingers up just a bit to make them all fit, especially when I'm wearing my gross beat up gloves. But still, when I have my beat up hand that needs lotion, I still have to crowd them. There's a little jimping up top near the blade and on the top of the blade, so you can position your thumb wherever you want, during wood combat, of course. The jimping is aggressive enough to provide traction. It's not sharp, but it's close, and it provides traction. Sorry, I didn't have another word ready. There's a finger groove on the bottom to give you control too when cutting or whatever you're doing. The handle is kind of bulbous, so it won't disappear in your hand. Okay, so the ferro striker is sort of awkwardly added in the handle. It's not awkwardly, it's well integrated, but the only real way it stays in is with a cheap paracord piece that comes with it, threaded through the tail, which kind of locks it into place. It does a good job of locking it when it's there, but I took it out for this review. But it looks like this when it's in. Otherwise, without the paracord lock, it just falls out. Never fear though, because there's a place in the decent nylon sheath that comes with it. This little pouch area right here, although I'd recommend leaving the striker and paracord on the tail, otherwise you might stab yourself with it like I do later in the review. The sheath can be worn higher up on your belt if you like it like this, but I don't. I prefer the dangly way, which is the way I have it mounted here. The sheath can be worn on your right or left belt side, and the knife oriented properly so it goes both ways for righties or lefties. It has a nice paracord sculpture hanging from it so it matches your 511 fall tactical wardrobe, provided you're still not wearing the summer collection, you hobo. The knife is held in with a snapped loop, although if you're hanging upside down from the monkey bars, it might fall through the loop because the loop is ever so slightly bigger than the handle. Not much though, and it stays in if you're, oriented with your head facing the sky. Cool, so I'll continue talking while I dismember the whole tree and see if I can start a fire with the carcass using the magic starting rod. They're made out of magic, right? I picked out this knife because GearBest was like, pick one out for review, and I'm like, I'm busy, but they insisted, so this one was under 30, and it seemed like a decent price. I like flat grinds all right, and this one looks sturdy from the pictures. Those were my real qualifications, you know, not much other than that. Other than, you know, of course, not being a karambit, which they tried to get me to review several of those, and I'm like, I wish the ferro rod stayed in the handle better. Having to keep it in with a paracord is not that great of a solution. Maybe if it came with a separate ferro rod and you just kept it in the pouch. So buy a second one, keep that one in there, and you're good. Or, you know, instead of putting the ferro rod in the pouch, you can put your weed in there. And if you really can't tell, this knife isn't great at chopping. It's a little too small on the handle, and the blade isn't quite long enough. But I'm doing it anyway for knife science. The sheath is good. It's a useful sheath for this price of a blade. It's not an overbuilt one, but it'll get the job done. And I don't see any major flaws with it, like that it rises too high. Well, it does smell a little weird, but some people smell weird too. So the knife is pretty handle heavy, and if you're looking for something lighter, this is probably not your knife. Stick with the cheap Mora. This is kind of like what I'd call a beater knife, you know? Like if you need something for a YouTube video and you really don't have any real survival skills. So the idea is to save a little piece of the tree so I can carve out a little mini tree with another knife I have. And maybe carve something with a Puco knife I got recently. I did not say that right. Of course I didn't look up how to pronounce it either. No promises though. And there'll be some nice quiet parts where you can hear me breathe heavily and awkwardly throughout. Okay, so let's carve off some shavings of wet bark. I don't think the needles or the branches are dry enough yet. It's not that I think that they're not, it's just that they are not. There's no way a fire is going to get started because the tree really didn't dry out. So let's make some sparks. Subscriber Raymond Williams said he wishes my videos were longer, so this is his fault. One thing to note, when the ferro rod isn't in the back, the edges are sharp, and you'll see why, because the ferro rod is part of the grip. So you could always sand that down a bit if you choose to do shit like this with your knife and not have the ferro rod in. But sorry, you know, it's been a few videos without any major cussing, so I had to. If you like this sort of review, subscribe to my channel, give my video a thumbs up, leave a comment, follow me on Instagram where you can see me right after I cut down this tree with an awkward smile on my face kneeling on the ground. Thanks for watching, Advanced Knife Pros.